Most people see an obstacle and stop. They freeze, complain, retreat, or look for a shortcut. But the Stoic does something radically different. He walks forward, not because it's easy, not because he enjoys the pain, but because he understands a truth most people spend their lives avoiding. The obstacle is the way. This idea is not just poetic, it's practical. Every difficulty you face is not a detour from your path. It is your path. What blocks you doesn't just test you, it teaches you. It forces growth. It sharpens your character. And if you choose to face it, not run from it, that very obstacle becomes the source of your transformation. Today's episode is a quiet rebellion against the modern urge to avoid discomfort and demand ease. It's a reminder, whispered from the minds of ancient philosophers to the soul of today's listener, that the things standing in your way were put there to shape you. Let's begin. 1. What blocks the path becomes the path. At first glance, obstacles feel like the universe is saying no. You make a plan, set a goal, take the first steps, and then something appears in your way. A delay, a rejection, a mistake, and your instinct is to turn back or find another route, because everything in modern life teaches us that obstacles are setbacks, that friction is failure. But the Stoic sees things differently. What blocks the path does not mean the journey ends. It means the real journey has just begun. Marcus Aurelius captured it in one of the most powerful ideas ever written. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To the untrained mind, that sounds poetic, maybe even vague. But to the disciplined thinker, it's a blueprint for resilience. The obstacle is not the enemy. The obstacle is the lesson, the material, the shaping force. It's the part of the journey that gives it weight, that asks more of you than comfort ever could. Imagine a traveler standing before a fallen tree blocking the road. Most would turn back or curse the delay. But the Stoic asks, can I climb over? Can I go through? Can I use this moment to learn what I never would have learned on a clear path? Maybe this isn't the end of the road. Maybe this is the road. Because real strength doesn't come from everything going according to plan. It comes from having to rewrite the plan under pressure. It comes from staying calm when the path is unclear, when fear kicks in, when expectations fall apart. That's the forge. That's the moment you stop being who you were and start becoming who you're meant to be. In fact, if you think about the moments that changed you the most, they probably weren't the easy ones. They weren't when everything was going your way. No, they were the moments when you had to fight, when you lost something, when something cracked inside you and you had to choose whether to break or build. That's the moment the obstacle did its job. It forced you to see yourself clearly. But this transformation only happens if you allow it. If you shift your mindset from "this shouldn't be happening" to "this is exactly what I needed to grow." Not because pain is good in itself, but because it can reveal your strength. Not because the setback is fair, but because it can shape your perspective in ways comfort never could. Life is not a controlled experiment. It's not supposed to be perfect. And when you fight that, you suffer. But when you accept the obstacle as your training ground, you start to evolve. The Stoic path is not about chasing obstacles for the sake of suffering. It's about refusing to be defeated by them. It's about standing still when chaos swirls, about choosing action when paralysis feels safer. It's about asking yourself again and again, how can I use this? Not to justify the pain, but to make it meaningful. And there's a hidden strength in that question, because it puts you back in control. Even if you can't move the obstacle, you can use it. You can learn patience. You can build grit. You can shift direction with more clarity. You can discover who you are without all the outcomes you thought you needed. The obstacle strips away what's unnecessary, and what's left, if you let it, is the essential. So the next time life throws something in your way, pause. Don't panic. Don't curse it. Don't wish it away. Ask yourself what it's inviting you to become, not just how to get past it, but how to grow through it. Because maybe the obstacle isn't stopping you. Maybe it's pointing you in the only direction that truly matters, inward. 2. Resistance is opportunity in disguise. It's easy to see resistance as the enemy, that uncomfortable tension we feel when things aren't flowing the way we want. We treat it like a warning sign, a reason to pull back, hesitate, or change course. But what if we've misunderstood it all along? What if resistance isn't a stop sign, but a signal? What if it's not telling you don't, but asking, are you willing to grow? Every great achievement has its roots buried in resistance. Not one person who's built something lasting did it in a vacuum of ease. The mountain didn't lower itself for the climber. The sculptor didn't find the statue already formed. The writer didn't receive the perfect sentence from the sky. No, they met resistance every day and walked through it. And in that struggle, they didn't just produce something, they became someone. The Stoics believed deeply in this paradox. The things that make us uncomfortable are often the very things that forge our character. When life resists your plans, it's not necessarily rejecting you. It may be redirecting you. It may be presenting you with exactly the friction you need to sharpen your edge. But most people avoid resistance because it doesn't feel good. It feels like failure, like struggle, like something must be wrong. We forget that growth doesn't feel good in real time. It feels confusing. It feels like chaos before clarity. And only in hindsight do we see the pattern. That resistance was never the obstacle. It was the door. That discomfort you feel when trying something new, that's the sound of the old self cracking. That frustration when progress stalls, that's the invitation to look deeper, not outward for more comfort, but inward for more discipline. Resistance is opportunity dressed in difficulty, but you can only see it if you stop wishing for ease and start valuing effort. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." He didn't say we should chase suffering, but we should understand it, not resent it, but study it. Because once you see resistance as a necessary part of becoming, it no longer paralyzes you. It empowers you. And here's the hidden advantage. When you train yourself to move through resistance, you begin to separate from the crowd. Most people are stopped by it. They complain, make excuses, or abandon the effort entirely. But the Stoic steps into resistance like a craftsman returning to his tools. Not because he enjoys pain, but because he sees what it creates. You don't become stronger by avoiding the weight. You grow by lifting it again and again. So the next time you hit that wall of resistance, don't ask, "Why is this so hard?" Ask, "What is this trying to teach me? What part of me is being refined? What skill, what mindset, what habit is being forged right now?" And perhaps most importantly, ask yourself this: what if this very resistance is the proof that I'm on the right path? The road of least resistance is easy, but it leads nowhere worth going. The Stoic knows this. He walks into resistance not because he's fearless, but because he's chosen the path of transformation over the path of comfort. So when resistance rises, meet it. Welcome it. Use it. It's not there to stop you. It's there to show you what you're really capable of becoming. 3. Go through, not around. There's a moment in every journey where you're tempted to detour, not because you're lost, but because what lies ahead feels too heavy, too uncertain, too painful to face. That's when most people start looking for shortcuts. A distraction, a justification, anything to avoid stepping directly into the discomfort. But the Stoic mindset teaches us something radical. Do not go around what's hard, go through it. Because on the other side of what you're avoiding is the version of you you're trying to become. It's easy to rationalize avoidance. You tell yourself, I'll deal with this later. It's not the right time. Maybe this path wasn't meant for me. But deep down, you know, the fear you feel is not a sign to run. It's a signal to pause, to face the challenge head-on with full awareness and calm. Avoidance may offer temporary relief, but it always comes with a cost. The weight you didn't carry becomes the lesson you didn't learn. To go through something means to accept the totality of the experience, the difficulty, the mess, the doubt. It means you don't look for a way to soften the blow. You learn how to absorb it with wisdom. You face the thing fully and let it change you, because that's where strength is born, not in finding another way, but in making your way through. This mindset is uncomfortable, but it's transformative. When you go through the hardship, you stop outsourcing your resilience. You stop waiting for circumstances to improve. You stop looking for someone to guide you out. Instead, you trust your own feet to carry you through the fire. Going through means letting grief run its course without numbing. It means having the hard conversation instead of hiding behind silence. It means admitting your weakness so you can build true strength. And most of all, it means staying present in the moment, even when that moment hurts, because avoidance only postpones the necessary. The longer you delay, the deeper the fear grows. But once you step into it, you take back control. There's an old truth. What you resist persists, but what you confront transforms. Going through the challenge doesn't mean you have all the answers. It just means you're willing to walk with uncertainty, trusting that clarity will emerge through the process, not before it. And ironically, when you stop trying to avoid discomfort, it becomes more bearable. You're no longer expending energy pretending it's not there. You're no longer fighting the emotion, you're working with it. That shift in posture changes everything. Now you're not a victim of circumstance. You're a participant in your own evolution. The Stoic knows that peace isn't found by dodging what's difficult. It's found by walking into difficulty with eyes open, heart steady, and principles intact. That's how you build inner power, not by removing the obstacle, but by becoming the kind of person who can move through it with clarity. So ask yourself today, what are you walking around that you need to walk through? What hard truth have you postponed confronting? What lesson have you delayed out of fear? You'll never know your full strength until you face what scares you, and the longer you wait, the more power you give it. But the moment you take that step, the moment you stop avoiding and start confronting, something changes, not just in the situation, but in you. Because you didn't run, you didn't circle it, you went through it, and that is how transformation begins. 4. Challenges shape resilience. It's tempting to think that resilience is something we're born with, that some people are simply tougher, stronger, more composed when life gets hard. But the truth is, resilience isn't a gift. It's not luck. It's not temperament. Resilience is built deliberately through difficulty, and the only way to build it is to face challenges, not avoid them. The Stoic doesn't fear struggle. He understands that every challenge is a sculptor, shaping the raw material of the self. Each obstacle carves away what's unnecessary: pride, entitlement, illusion, and reveals what is essential: patience, courage, endurance, and clarity. The easy path may keep you comfortable, but it does not forge your strength. Only resistance, only hardship, only adversity has the power to do that. Think about it. A muscle grows not when it's at rest, but when it's torn and rebuilt. In the same way, the mind and spirit are stretched and strengthened by friction. You can read all the philosophy in the world, but until you live through something hard, until you stay with discomfort instead of running, you won't know what you're really made of. We live in a culture that avoids pain at all costs. We medicate, distract, rationalize, anything but feel. But the Stoic invites the opposite. Feel the weight. Hold the pressure. Let the challenge do its work. Because pain, when faced with reason and intention, becomes instruction, and struggle becomes training, and hardship becomes transformation. This doesn't mean you have to enjoy suffering. It doesn't mean you become numb or detached. On the contrary, it means you remain fully present in the experience, but no longer dominated by it. You become the calm in the storm, not because the storm disappeared, but because you found your footing inside of it. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." That is the core of Stoic resilience, not avoiding the polishing, but trusting it. Not resenting the pressure, but welcoming its purpose. Challenges ask you, will you react or will you respond? Will you collapse or will you compose yourself? Will you allow this to define you or refine you? And every time you choose to endure, without bitterness, without complaint, without losing your principles, you become someone more solid, more steady, more grounded. You begin to notice that things which once disturbed your peace now barely shake you. Why? Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Resilience is the quiet force that doesn't shout, but it stands. It doesn't resist feeling, but it refuses to be ruled by it. And that strength, it's not found in books, it's forged in lived experience. Every setback, every betrayal, every unexpected loss, they're not just events, they're classrooms. And if you show up with the right mindset, you leave each one more powerful than before. So the next time you're facing a challenge, ask yourself this: am I trying to get rid of this discomfort, or am I allowing it to shape me? Because challenge, in its purest form, is not your enemy, it's your teacher, and resilience is the lesson it's trying to give you. Not just once, but again and again, until you don't just survive the storm. You become the kind of person who can walk through it and lead others out of it too. 5. See difficulty as direction. Most people see difficulty as a detour, something that pulls them off track, slows them down, or blocks their goals. But what if difficulty is the track? What if it's not a sign that you're lost, but a signal that you're finally going somewhere meaningful? The Stoic doesn't believe in chance without purpose. When things get hard, he doesn't curse the sky or fall into despair. He leans in, he examines. Because often the most important paths are revealed not in moments of clarity, but in moments of struggle. And it's only when you're tested that you're truly invited to discover who you are and what matters most. Difficulty forces focus. It strips away the superficial and demands a deeper kind of honesty. When things are easy, you can drift. You can hide behind comfort. But when life puts weight on your shoulders, there's no space left for illusion. You must choose. Either you crumble or you become more deliberate. And that choice, that pressure, is what awakens something real inside of you. Imagine walking in a fog. Everything feels uncertain, unclear, and suddenly you hit resistance. A hill, a rough patch, a steep incline. Most turn back. But the Stoic sees something else. The very fact that it's hard means there's something worth reaching. The obstacle becomes a compass, not because it's easy to climb, but because it demands effort, and effort is the birthplace of meaning. Too many people spend their lives searching for the right path, one that feels smooth, certain, free of friction. But that path doesn't shape you. The Stoic isn't looking for ease. He's looking for alignment, a path that challenges him to live by his principles, not just speak them. And difficulty is how that path reveals itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He wasn't being poetic, he was being precise. The challenge you're avoiding might not just be a problem, it might be the invitation you've been waiting for, to mature, to evolve, to grow into the next version of yourself. Seeing difficulty as direction doesn't mean forcing yourself into pain for no reason. It means recognizing that what's hard is often what's most necessary, that behind the resistance is a lesson, behind the discomfort is clarity, behind the friction is progress, if you're willing to step toward it instead of away from it. So the next time something difficult appears, stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me? What strength is being revealed? What habit is being tested? What belief is being reshaped?" Your direction is not defined by how fast you move or how straight the road is. It's defined by how deeply you engage with the terrain, especially when it's rough, especially when it asks more of you than you expected. The Stoic doesn't run from these moments. He sees them as signs that he's alive, that something important is unfolding. He trusts that difficulty is not the end of the path, it's the path itself. 6. Rise because of the problem. There's a kind of strength that only appears when you stop wishing things were easier and start using difficulty as the very reason to rise. It's the power of choosing growth because of the problem, not in spite of it. And this is where the Stoic separates himself from the crowd. Most people rise when conditions are right, but the Stoic learns to rise precisely because they're not. Life will test you. It will place burdens on your back and walls in your path. It will give you moments where everything feels stacked against you. And in those moments, you have a choice. Shrink under the weight, or rise into it. The Stoic doesn't pretend the struggle isn't real. He doesn't romanticize suffering or deny pain, but he refuses to become smaller than the challenge. Why? Because he sees adversity as a sculptor. It doesn't just test your will, it sharpens it. It doesn't just break your routine, it builds your resilience. The problem is not just something to survive, it's something to rise into. There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop resisting and start responding. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and you begin saying, "What does this demand from me?" That's where growth begins, not in avoidance, but in engagement, not in control, but in courage. And here's the paradox. The bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity to expand. Not externally, not in status or recognition, but internally, in discipline, wisdom, and strength. You rise by choosing to carry the weight without resentment, by doing the hard thing without needing applause, by showing up when it would be easier to disappear. It's easy to shine when everything's aligned. But real character is forged when the plan collapses, when the support vanishes, when you're left standing in the quiet with nothing but your principles. That's when the Stoic rises, not loudly, not dramatically, but deliberately. Rising because of the problem means turning inward before turning outward. It means checking your response before blaming the world. It means anchoring yourself to your values, not your emotions. And in doing so, you discover a different kind of power, one that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on clarity. Because life isn't waiting to become easier, it's waiting for you to become stronger. And the beauty of this truth is that it puts the responsibility back where it belongs, in your hands. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need everything to line up. You need only one thing: the decision to rise. So the next time life throws a punch, don't just brace for impact. Step into it. Meet it. Not with aggression, but with stillness. Not with panic, but with purpose. Say to yourself, this is not the thing that stops me. This is the thing that shapes me. Because the Stoic doesn't wait for ideal conditions. He doesn't rise when it's easy. He rises because it's hard. And in doing so, he transforms the problem into a platform, not a reason to retreat, but a reason to become. 7. Turn pain into practice. Pain can either imprison you or instruct you. It can close you off from life or open something deeper within it. And for the Stoic, pain is never a dead end. It's a signal, not to collapse, but to practice. Not to react blindly, but to act with purpose. When we experience pain, whether emotional or physical, our instinct is to resist. We label it as bad, something to avoid, something to suppress. But in Stoic thought, pain is neither good nor bad in itself. It's information. It's feedback. It's a form of nature speaking directly to your awareness, asking you to engage, to examine, to train. Epictetus, who lived most of his life with a disabled body, taught that suffering was not in the event itself, but in our interpretation of it. And in that space between sensation and response, we are free. Free to turn that pain into something more than just a burden. Free to practice patience, to develop endurance, to deepen wisdom. This doesn't mean we become indifferent to suffering or numb to others' pain. Quite the opposite. The Stoic becomes more attuned. But rather than drowning in emotion or self-pity, he asks, what can this teach me? How can I grow stronger from this? What practice is being called forth in me right now? That word, practice, is vital. Because the Stoic life isn't about having all the answers. It's about showing up every day, especially when it's hard, with integrity. It's about using each challenge as an exercise for the soul. Just like a musician practices scales or an athlete practices form, the Stoic sees adversity as a spiritual training ground. Pain becomes the teacher, and the discipline is how you respond. When you feel rejection, can you use it to strengthen your sense of self? When you face loss, can you use it to sharpen your understanding of impermanence? When you're criticized unfairly, can you use it to anchor more deeply into your values instead of retaliating with ego? These are not easy questions, but they're the right ones, because every moment of pain is also a moment of choice. You can complain, or you can cultivate. You can resist, or you can rise. Think of a blacksmith forging a blade. The steel is placed into fire not to destroy it, but to strengthen it. The heat, the hammer, the friction, these are not enemies, they are essential. And in much the same way, the fire of pain in your life is not here to ruin you. It's here to forge you, to shape a sharper mind, a steadier heart, a more grounded self. So, how do you begin? You start by not wasting the pain. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what now? You train yourself to pause, breathe, and observe. And in that space you shift from victim to student, from overwhelmed to intentional. Pain, when left unused, corrodes, but when transformed into practice, it purifies. And the Stoic knows this. What hurts now may serve you later, if you're willing to stay awake through it. Don't let pain be the end of your story. Let it be the forge where your next chapter is written, not in suffering for its own sake, but in using it deliberately, courageously, consistently, to become someone stronger than the version who walked into it. 8. Use adversity to your advantage. Adversity doesn't wait for your permission. It enters your life unannounced, through loss, through failure, through unexpected change. And in that moment, everything within you either tightens in resistance or opens toward transformation. The Stoic doesn't see adversity as an intruder. He sees it as an opportunity, an unlikely but powerful ally. Because when everything is stripped away, what remains is what's real. There's a principle hidden in every setback, one that most people miss because they're too busy wishing things were different. But the Stoic trains his eyes differently. He doesn't ask, "How can I get out of this?" He asks, "How can I grow from this?" Because adversity, when approached consciously, can be converted. It can be recycled into strength, turned into direction, molded into wisdom. This mindset isn't about toxic positivity or pretending things aren't difficult. It's not about turning pain into poetry overnight. It's about standing in the wreckage and realizing you still have power, you still have a choice, and that choice is where freedom begins. Think of a tree growing on a mountainside, shaped by years of wind and storms. It bends, it cracks, but its roots grow deeper with every challenge, not because the mountain is kind, but because the mountain is. And the tree's only path to survival is adaptation. So it leans into the wind, it strengthens, it thrives because of the pressure, not despite it. That's what it means to use adversity to your advantage, to root yourself in something deeper than circumstances, to allow hardship to clarify your vision, not cloud it, to turn every "why me" into "watch me." Take a moment and reflect. What if the challenge you're facing right now is not blocking your path, but building it? What if it's removing what you didn't need, burning away illusions, forcing you to stop lying to yourself? What if the very pressure you feel is forging the clarity you've been avoiding? The Stoic finds meaning not in avoiding hardship, but in responding to it with excellence. He says, "I may not control the storm, but I control how I stand in it." And that's where his advantage lies, in reclaiming power, not by resisting life, but by aligning with its deepest currents. That doesn't mean you won't fall. You will. But falling isn't the end. It's the beginning of your education. Pain is a tutor. Failure is a flashlight. Every closed door teaches you more about the architecture of your character, if you let it. So use the pain, use the delay, use the betrayal. Let it carve something unshakable in you. Let it show you what matters and what doesn't. Let it strip you of everything false until only the essential remains. Because in the end, adversity is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It reveals your reflexes, your limits, your beliefs. And when you stop flinching, when you face what's hard instead of fleeing from it, you start to turn pain into purpose, setbacks into stepping stones, adversity into advantage. 9. The obstacle trains the mind. When life places something heavy in your path, a betrayal, a failure, a loss, most people see it as something to avoid, something that delays or derails their progress. But the Stoic sees it differently. He sees the obstacle not as a roadblock, but as a weight to be lifted, a tool that doesn't just test the body or the will, but sharpens the mind. Just like the body cannot grow stronger without resistance, the mind cannot grow wiser without obstacles. Without friction, there is no fire. Without challenge, there is no clarity. And that's why the obstacle, the thing we think is getting in the way, is in fact preparing us, training us. But training doesn't always feel good. It feels like doubt. It feels like pain. It feels like failure. And that's the point. The mind, like a muscle, becomes capable through struggle, not in spite of it. Every difficult conversation, every rejection, every long night of uncertainty is a mental weight being placed on your shoulders. And what you choose to do with that weight is what shapes you. Do you collapse under it, or do you use it? The Stoic trains his mind not by seeking comfort, but by embracing the necessity of discomfort. He doesn't pray for fewer problems. He prepares for stronger responses. And in doing so, he makes the obstacle his personal training ground. Not an excuse, but a sharpening stone. Think about it. The obstacle forces you to slow down, to analyze, to ask better questions. It breaks the autopilot. It demands attention. And in that demand, your awareness expands. Your reactions become more measured. Your decisions become less emotional, more intentional. Over time, you begin to realize the obstacle wasn't just something to get over. It was something that changed how you see. That shift in perception is everything. Most people run from difficulty, but the Stoic leans in. He asks, what part of me is being challenged? What weakness is being exposed? What lesson is being offered? And in that examination, the mind becomes more agile, more focused, more resilient. It's the opposite of helplessness, because when your mind is trained by challenge, it stops flinching, it stops catastrophizing, it stops spiraling in stories, and instead, it starts solving, it starts observing, it starts choosing. The trained mind is not reactive, it is reflective. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." That's not just poetic, it's practical. Every mental setback is a chance to apply the principles you say you believe in. Patience, discipline, courage, detachment. You can't just read about them. You can't just talk about them. You have to test them. And the obstacle is your invitation to do exactly that. So don't resent the thing that's slowing you down. It might be the very thing waking you up. Every time you confront it with intention, every time you respond instead of react, you're wiring your brain for wisdom, not weakness, for clarity, not chaos. The obstacle trains the mind, and when your mind is trained, there's very little the world can do to disturb your peace. 10. Stoicism turns hardship into strength. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a quiet but unshakable truth. Nothing is wasted, not even pain, especially not pain, because what seems like hardship to most people is seen by the Stoic as raw material. Material to be transformed, shaped, and forged into something stronger, into strength. Not the loud kind, not the kind that shouts or flexes, but the kind that endures, that adapts, that does not break when life does its worst. Strength, in the Stoic sense, is not the absence of hardship. It's built through it. It's the ability to remain steady in the face of storms, not because they don't hurt, but because they don't control you. It's what grows inside when you face fear and don't run, when you're betrayed and still choose dignity, when you're exhausted and still take the next step. This is what makes Stoicism not just a philosophy, but a discipline, It's a way of living that turns every obstacle into a training ground, every failure into a refinement, every wound into a window to something deeper. The Stoic doesn't waste energy cursing what went wrong. He asks, what can I build with this? What strength is trying to emerge through this chaos? There is no illusion in Stoicism, no sugarcoating, no fantasy that life should be easy. In fact, the Stoic expects difficulty. He anticipates it, not to be cynical, but to be prepared. Because when suffering is no longer a surprise, it becomes manageable. When adversity is part of the design, not a flaw, it becomes meaningful. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." These are not just words to read once and move on. They are meant to be lived, practiced, remembered in the thick of life. Because when you stop resisting hardship and start using it, when you take the pain and redirect it into discipline, the doubt into reflection, the setback into structure, you stop living as a victim of life and start becoming a student of it. That transformation is not flashy. It won't win applause. But over time, it creates something powerful, a kind of quiet fortitude that no praise can inflate and no insult can deflate, a strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real, because it's rooted in character, not appearance. The world will continue to offer challenges. Life will not bend to your preferences, but that's not a tragedy. It's an invitation. Every difficulty is a doorway. Every trial is a tool. And Stoicism is the practice of stepping through that doorway with courage and using that tool with purpose. So when the next hardship arrives, and it will, ask yourself, will this break me? Or will I build with it? The Stoic chooses the latter, every time. Because in the end, Stoicism doesn't just teach you how to survive hardship, it teaches you how to transform through it, how to turn the worst life gives you into the best version of who you are meant to become. So now you see, the obstacle was never the enemy. It was the path calling you to grow. Every hardship you've faced, every setback you've endured, every weight you've carried, it wasn't meant to destroy you. It was there to build you, slowly, quietly, intentionally. It was teaching you something you couldn't learn any other way, that your greatest strength is not in avoiding pain, but in rising through it. This is the Stoic way. Not to run, not to complain, not to collapse, but to face what comes with courage, to stand where others fall, and to find meaning where most only see misfortune. And when you truly live this, not just in words, but in action, you begin to realize life's greatest lessons don't come when things are easy. They come when everything inside you says stop, but something deeper says no. Continue. Remember this, the fire doesn't burn you to ashes, it burns away what you no longer need. And what's left is you, clearer, stronger, unshakable. So don't curse the difficulty, don't fear the next trial, embrace it as part of your training, because the obstacle is the way, and the path through it is where your strength is born. And if this episode spoke to something in you, if it reminded you of your own power, share it, leave a comment, let others find strength too. But above all, carry this with you. The next time life gets hard, don't resist it. Rise because of it.